your peers and speak. Gail's worked really, really hard on this, so let's give her a round of applause and all of our respect.
Again, I'm Gail, and I work on the Bose project, and I'll be telling you a little bit about myself. This is going to be a two-part presentation. First, I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and the second part about lessons along the way. Maybe by sharing my story, this can be helpful to some of you. There'll be time for questions at the end. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I had a hard childhood. My family life was stressful. I had a father who was a strict disciplinarian and appeared to me to be controlling. I bottled up my feelings. I learned that it was not okay to cry. I did not know what feelings were. I was afraid of my father and later of all authority figures and mental health professionals. I was diagnosed with borderline autism in early childhood. I did not talk until I was 4 years old. I was very sensitive. I was unable to do some things that my parents required of me. I did not like to get wet. I had physical difficulties with writing. My mother would sometimes write for me. I would get so frustrated that I would actually hit my writing hand with my hand. The multiple moves during my childhood really affected me. I do not tolerate change well. I made the choice to stay behind in 1979 when my parents moved to Alexandria, Virginia. The move change effect seemed to be too great. I was over-dependent on my mother at that time. People from my church at that time came and visited me. Eventually, some family friends who were members of the same church came and took me to their home for a few days. I was at that time unable to cope with the loneliness, and I wasn't feeling well. In my early 30s, I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, and this contributed to my divorce. However, this Asperger's diagnosis proved to be a good thing, and I will talk later about that. I worked for a consulting firm for 1 year and 4 months with all the changes that entails and the job pressures and overtime. I had major clinical depression starting from November 23, 1993, which is now controlled by meds and talk therapy. Because of my father's high expectations of me and my inability to meet them, I thought that I was not good enough at anything. I had a fear of being fired from my full-time jobs. And in the beginning, I feared being fired from Aspiritech as well, even though people were supportive. Here are some of my coping skills. I took ownership of life and choices. For example, I felt like people were forcing me to take showers on their schedule, but I made the choice to shower regularly on my schedule. Goal setting is an important coping skill that I learned. I needed to exercise. I set goals for myself to exercise on the New Step, an exercise machine that exercises the arms and the legs, starting at load level 1 out of 10 at 40 to 50 steps per minute for 15 minutes. As time went on, I gradually increased the level to level 4, the highest I could go and not get a stiff lower back. After that, I increased the number of steps per minute to 50 to 60. I still tend to increase things even more. Feelings and psychotherapy. Some feelings I felt are and were anger, sadness, loneliness, frustration, fear, etc. I kept them bottled up and blocked out. Later, I sometimes dwelt on them. These actions affected my mental, emotional, and physical health. It took a long time for me to identify, then acknowledge, and then let go of my past feelings. It took years and years of psychotherapy to help me to do this. I had to go through this in order to forgive people like my father and my ex-husband Olaf. I talked to some special friends and mental health professionals about my feelings, and this helped me. And for me, having a higher power has really helped to heal my feelings. Talking, praying to the higher power really helped me. Forgiveness. I was angry and bitter. It even affected my physical health. When I forgive somebody, the forgiveness is from the heart and not just saying it. To me, just saying it is not real forgiving. In my childhood and teenage years, I was very hurt and angry at my father. It took a long time before I could forgive him. I had to identify and deal with my past feelings first. As a child, if I knew about my feelings and what I know now, and if I knew about using I statements with expressing feelings, it would have gone something like this. I perceive that you are a strict disciplinarian, and I cannot do some things that you asked me to do, instead of saying, you are a strict disciplinarian. I feel very hurt and angry about this. I also feel frustrated, like I cannot do anything right for you, instead of saying, you make me so angry. I wish that you would give me some slack. When I tried to forgive my father, it went something like this. I perceive that you were a strict disciplinarian. I feel very hurt and angry about this. I forgive you. Sadly, he did not understand what it was about. I still forgive my father. Finding solutions to problems helps me. I used to run away from problems. Getting help with problems is a solution for me. For example, while I was at Northern Illinois University, I sought help from the professors because I could not take notes and listen at the same time. I do not know how to fill out income tax forms, so I paid somebody to do it for me. I learned seeking the help of mental health professionals is a strength and not a weakness in my adult years. I've seen various mental health professionals since childhood and received a lot of help. Next is dealing with fears. I had a fear of being fired all my professional life. When I came to the Aspiritech, I still had the fear in the beginning. I had two ways of dealing with this particular fear. One, I remembered that I have another source of income. Two, I remember that I receive help from everyone at Aspiritech. I had a fear of dentists and a fear of the dentist drill. It took a long time to overcome this fear. I now have a good dentist. I talked it out with my mental health professionals and then with my dentist after being with him for a long time and gaining a trust and a knowledge of how he works. I also used a knowledge of what would happen if I did not see the dentist. I break up big, overwhelming projects into tiny steps. Packing for a move is a big project. Break it up into tiny pieces. A part of a room, a box, or a part of a box at a time. Running tests can be a big project. Step 1, break it up into test cases. Step 2, break up the test cases into test steps. Some test steps can be broken up into tiny steps. Finally, another thing that helps me is having communities of friends, including from church, my residence, and here at Aspiritech. In the past, I have used the Park District and 12-step program groups. Using the lessons I've learned along the way has helped me a lot. Helping others always helps me. I hope to help you by answering any questions that you may have.
Yay!